Hi, welcome to Sell the Story, a podcast where we provide advice to e-com owners on branding, how and why. Our guest today is Corey D. Brown, founder of iconic Buffalo-based e-com agency BuffaBrand. Today we talk about trust, and the reason why sometimes your ads are failing isn't the mechanical pieces and the tactics or the latest hack. It's because you haven't built up trust with the consumer. And conversion is quite often a trust factor, not just a funnel metric. Okay, let's get into it. Hi, you're with Ben Watson and my co-host Clint Armstrong of Sell the Story. And today we have Corey from BuffaBrand, an e-commerce founder, CEO, agency owner basically. Corey, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Corey, before we get going, what are you drinking today? Coffee-wise, I've got my espresso from a local coffee shop. They roast their own beans. It's delicious. They do a great job.
I'm a coffee connoisseur, so I'm mostly an espresso-based drink person, not so much drip coffee anymore. When you run an agency, you need something a little stronger than drip.
Yes.
So I'm one latte deep. This is already gone. So we're working on water now. Second latte starts after the record.
We could have a full podcast on espresso and coffee, and I would just sit here and laugh my head off as you two talk, because I'm drinking day old iced drip coffee that Ben gives me crap about literally every single time. So Corey, just so you know, I apologize in advance, but I'm getting the caffeine that I need. So
listen, life is too short to drink bad coffee. Okay.
Ben tries to get me there. I didn't realize how deep the rabbit hole went with Ben and espresso and coffee. And I still, after we've been working together really closely for 18 plus months, I still haven't gotten to the bottom. And I'm pretty sure it's going to take me another couple of years. So you guys could just lots of conversation about it, I'm sure.
Let's do it.
Anyway, Clint, I'm just impressed it's only one day old. So well done.
Exactly. I mean, I made it on purpose yesterday, so.
All right. So let's talk about brand. Creating a differentiated brand is not easy. E-commerce owners can find it actually fairly terrifying at times, and it can be a bar to aim for too, really differentiated where people remember your brand and search for it by name. But Corey, you've been in this game for a while. Talk to us about the role brand plays and what your agency does to really try to help these businesses stand out and move from product to brand.
Yeah, so let's kind of start with the brand side. So I think a lot of people are really familiar with selling on e-commerce verticals, whether you're on an Amazon, a Walmart, or you're selling DTC. Kind of building of a brand is such an ambiguous term. And as an agency leader, I have to be able to distill that to sellers all the time. Heck, friends and family don't necessarily know what I do. When I say I build brands on Amazon, they're like, cool, what's that mean? I have the same conversation with sellers often where they bring me products or they have ideas. And we talk about building brand as the way to drive value long-term. And it's still ambiguous, even to people who are developing amazing products. They don't necessarily have the brand built out around it. And I'm not just talking like a logo, some colors, some fonts. Although if you don't have those things defined, stop. Go do that right now. You should walk into any conversation with those kind of pre-planned. But really going through more the voice, the community, and how you're going to play off of that. How are you differentiated and what are you differentiating? Is it based on geography? Are you trying to be like a localized brand? Are you trying to be, hey, I'm really proud I'm Canadian brand? Are you trying to represent, a niche like a minority? There are so many different ways to kind of build out a brand, maybe find an underserved community of people and bring a voice to them. And so for me, that can kind of come out in so many different ways. So really what we do is having deep conversations and learning with sellers and kind of building out their initial idea and expanding upon that. And how is that going to look visually? How's it going to feel? The simple way of saying it is, we'll create a mood board, right? Like that might be like the starting point. Like, hey, let's get a Pinterest board together. Like, what should this feel like? But that's a good starting point. But then you have to take that feeling and start to actually put like words that you can execute against, right? Like, so you have to actually define that, sit there and define it to right down to the minutia. so that you can say, if and when we do this on this platform, it should look, feel, and sound like this because this is authentically our voice. So that's really what we focus on as a brand. Honestly, that's what I focused on as an agency coming up as well, is kind of having that authentic brand that people recognize. And I think that's one of the areas that we've been successful too. And I do think that that draws people in because they look at, let's say, our booth at an event, or they look at this background, which is real, by the way. These are all small things. I'm a very intentional person. And so everything I do has that level of intentionality to it. So we're really working to curate that for each and every one of our brands as best we can.
Yeah.
So when you kind of go through this process with your clients or even potential clients, like you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, but how does that play out? Like as you start to integrate those ideas into what they're doing, do you find that that you have to be very regimented in what that process is, or is there some wiggle room based on kind of the feedback you're either getting from consumers or from the brand owner themselves, or like what does that typically look like within your process?
Yeah, the feedback loop is always interesting too, because I think it actually starts internally. So we kind of have those conversations. Maybe, let's say we're taking a brand and we're visually building it out for Amazon as an example. So maybe that's the focus. Maybe they have a DTC, it's doing medium well, they're trying to launch it onto Amazon. So we're trying to take that voice. At that point, we're kind of stopping, having deep conversations, trying to get as much information out from where they want to go. And then from that point, we're going to take out and build out a lot of visuals. And we have a visual, we have a roadmap for our creative process to kind of do that. And I think creative is maybe the easiest way to look at this because it's so visual. You can feel it, you're reading through it. But a lot of times what we get is we get into a troublesome loop. And this is where sellers either need to defer to someone who understands brand or give them as much as possible and like just take a step back and breathe. Because a lot of times what we do is we'll build out everything exactly how they wanted it to look. And then they'll go, I need it to be more airy. I need it to feel a little more luxurious. And we have these conversations. It's like, what does that tangibly mean? Yep. Right? Like that's the first feedback loop that we have internally. It's like, okay, you make that tangible. Like, what does airy mean? Do we need to remove elements? What does luxury mean to you? Do we need to add gold? Is it a font? What's the feeling that you're missing with that? And honestly, sometimes when you get to that point, I actually, in my early days, we'd go round and round and round. Now I'm a little more steadfast in saying, that's great. I feel like we're 90% of the way. Yep. Let's launch. Let's get the secondary feedback loop, which is, what are your customers like? Because you have a bias. Exactly. Yes, we like to define the brand, but you have a bias towards what you're looking at, and you've been looking at it for a long time. Let's get it out to the market. We'll make sure that it looks great, but it might not be exactly what you feel it should be, but that could be exactly what the customers want. So then we're taking the customer feedback on kind of how conversions work and how they're giving us feedback in every different way that they can, reviews, et cetera. And then we'll take that and we'll kind of like re-curate and go back through, or maybe we don't need to at all. So that's kind of like the process that we utilize. And that's been developed over time as I've gotten a better feel for just making sure that we all get out of the way and let the customers see the product.
I feel like the best brands, the ones that really break through, are the ones that accept early on that they're custodians of a brand, but they don't actually own it. It's that customer, what problem are you solving? And you're owning the brand together. And it's really a back and forth tension between the two parties that goes to sort of build these amazing brands that have longevity. That's great. That's great that you're doing that sort of work. Do you have a couple of brands you really love, or you identified as potential targets or might be current clients?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of love to one of my favorite clients right now that we're working with. I love to tell their story, and we've had such success with them. But it really comes down to this conversation, right? The branding side of it, not just products, it's brand. So Crown Skin is an amazing brand. It is a brand that is focusing on luxury health and beauty for men, specifically men of color. Which, there's a lot of stigmas in that space about beauty. And so what Daryl Spencer is the founder of that. And he's just an amazing guy who's built this brand out to essentially serve this community. And boy, has it created a real community around it and a real brand. But we met a year plus ago at an event, and they weren't even on Amazon. In fact,
Wow.
if you look at their brand today, it'll look completely different than their brand looked, honestly, 2 weeks ago, but 6 months ago, if you go backwards, because they had an iteration process and they were kind of resetting everything because of what consumers have given us that feedback. So it kind of goes back to that story. But yeah, we met and I kind of convinced him like, hey, you need to be on Amazon. We need to build this out. And now they are a multi-million-dollar brand on Amazon. They're absolutely crushing it. We're looking at other markets and expanding their brand. And honestly, a lot of it has to do with he's got the vision. He's building the community. He's building the brand side of it. And then he's letting a lot of other people execute on a really high level. And just kind of, I always say it's a superpower of knowing when to let go, right? Like it's really hard being a leader and letting go of things. And one of the best superpowers you can have is being able to discern if I can trust this person or this team and step out of the way and let them own it and just give them feedback. And he is incredible at that. So shout out to Daryl.
Yeah, I just looked at the website. Looks great. That's it's a great looking brand.
We in the last podcast we chatted with an M&A guy. His name is Tall. So excuse me. And he said something remarkably similar. He sees a lot of brands that are kind of building for that eventual exit. And you have some that are, founder owned and it's their vision and they just do it until they can't. And then you have others that get to a point where it seems like Daryl, correct, has gotten to where he very much understands that his vision is what is driving it, but he needs the help. And I said this in the last one and I'll say it again. It's like those founders who can be that self-introspective and be like, I can't do this, but I know that this brand can be massive. I have to give away that responsibility and trust somebody else. It's so impressive. So impressive. Because it's like your baby, it's like your kid, and trusting it with somebody else it's rough.
Well, and let's look at that through the lens of modern day e-com landscape. So omnichannel is no longer an option, right? Like omnichannel is mandatory at this point. You used to be able to just build on Amazon, and sure, you could still take that route, but truly, the way that we've got with the sale of TikTok, on the horizon here, and everything that we've got going on with the rise of Walmart in the e-com space, which hasn't nearly caught Amazon, but we've got Amazon. We've got we could go even further, the AI and how that's impacting search and sales and the ability to buy. We've got Netflix and Amazon TV. There's all these huge partnerships where TV is going to start to become really shoppable, really easy, and also very, very direct and segmented. Omnichannel is so mandatory at this point that how could you possibly, as a leader of a brand, understand the community that you're serving, understand the product vision that you're doing, be building and developing, be leading a team, and then also be like an Amazon PPC expert, a TikTok, it's almost like, you have to shed that ego and go, I can't do all of these things. This is like internally on my team. I say, I'm really good at all of Amazon, but I have a person on my team or people on my team in each area that are way better than me at each and every one of these areas. So just take that and go up 6 levels to a brand owner. Like you can't run TikTok yourself and Amazon yourself and Walmart and retail relationships and whatever other channels you're on. And then be doing negotiations and brand building and product development. It's not sustainable. So I really think that it's commendable to those that can see that early and start to build those relationships. It's huge.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I mean, Clint and I, our background is big holding groups where you do everything. You work with massive brands, and they're active in a lot of channels, and so it sort of took a bit for us to sort of realize that how many agencies out there just do Amazon or just do products, sponsored search. They don't even touch DSP. It feels too much, too hard. And Corey, it's really interesting you saying that in the US at least, that's not enough. And when you set up your agency, what was your? And I agree, in building a brand, it's not enough, But I think the tendency sometimes is to try and do everything, and that's not the right option either. How do you coach your clients in encouraging them to build their brand, not having to try to do everything all at once?
Yeah, I think that's a little easier because we're pretty segmented as it is. Like we've had the ability to expand into these other markets too, as TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok's very adjacent to what I do. I talk about it all the time, but we were offered to become a TikTok agency as well, and I passed on it because like a partnership with TikTok. Because I looked internally and said, yeah, this isn't going to be what our core is. So let's stay true to our core. So I think being a business owner myself, I think that has always helped when it comes to talking to brands and getting really eye to eye. Like alignment and authenticity are like the two biggest things for me in business. And that's not true for everyone, by the way. That's not true for a lot of people. It's all about dollars. But for me, that's not a way that I can work. So for me to find that alignment and to be able to work with brand owners who are understanding that I get where they're coming from. And so I'm selling them a segment of services and products and kind of saying like, hey, we're really great at this. You should find someone else who's really great at that. Don't hire me for that. That would not serve you well. But they get that because I have actually built my own business doing the exact same. When I started my agency, my mentor basically said, hey, you know more about Amazon than any person I've ever met. You should stop working for other people and start working for yourself. Yep. and create a consultancy. And what I realized within 20 minutes of starting to build out what that consultancy looked like was I'm going to be suggesting a lot of services.
Yeah.
I can't just hand people off into those services. I need to actually build out and have control of a few areas within my own business. And so as I was building that out, I kind of learned where the lines were and how much you should take on in any one vertical. And I think that really helps when I'm working with a brand owner, that they can kind of trust me to be able to see those lines and get in agreement with them and help them find other people, by the way, who are really great in these other areas. Like I love working. My favorite brands to work with are ones that they come to me like, we've got an amazing Shopify person, an amazing social person. And it's like, great, let me be your amazing Amazon person and we'll all work together.
Nice.
That's awesome. Have you built or building brands or your clients' brands that then like they get to a point where you are like, this is what you need next. Like, here are some people you can go and talk to. Whether it is, I don't know if you do like CTV buying with Amazon or if that's part of the services that you offer there, but it's just like, are those like next steps where you're like, we know that this is what you need to do in order to continue to grow. We don't necessarily do it. Go talk to Jim over at whatever other agency to help you out.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths that I have in business is building partnerships and network. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's always been integral to how I've built BuffaBrand. We don't do a lot of marketing in general. So a lot of what we have is referral basis. So kind of the opposite of what you just said, like people who are seeing us as that. I have also built that out for our side as well. Typically in the Amazon space, we're kind of handling each and everything that comes at us because that is our core, right? Especially if it's Amazon US or Amazon North America, we're going to basically work on that to some degree. Now, if you have someone who their account scales to a certain point or they need maybe services that are outside of it, we've got amazing referral partners for. Here's a great example. We are Shopify developers, but we only build small Shopify stores. We build, typically we're propping up a store that's more or less supporting Amazon. So if you're building an amazing store like the Crown Skin store that you just looked at, we didn't build that. We wouldn't build that. We actually would refer that out because we would say that there's people that can build this size better than us. And so when we get into like media buying and kind of like the Meta Google space or a really large Shopify lift or just certain scale of clients, then yes, we're essentially taking and saying, okay, I've been in this space a long time, got a lot of really great partners. Who would be the best fit for this brand, and kind of letting them, doing introductions and so forth.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. No, it's funny. We've heard that from a couple of different agency owners. One of them in particular was all about passion, and for her, it really was important that the clients she works with can sort of handle that passion and sort of feed into it, because she really does want to do everything for them that she can, and some clients just not comfortable with that feeling. But anyway, it's about finding the right fit. And sometimes that's a bit of an intangible too, just, knowing the owner and their personality, I guess, as much as anything.
Yeah, of course. And I always like to share like the very first client that I ever was able to retain in the Amazon space, I fired them 2 weeks later with no other clients on the on the horizon at that moment.
Wow.
I fired them because of that exact. I basically looked in the mirror and was at a point where I didn't feel like there was alignment between the value I was driving and this person, and I just had to make that choice of, are we going to chase dollars right away, or am I going to start this with integrity? And so I fired them, and they actually came back 6 months later and tried to get us to work again. And I had to say, no, thank you. But that was kind of my moment where I'm like, this is going to be based on integrity and alignment. And yes, we've got to pay bills. Yes, we're going to build this out, but we're going to do this the right way. And so I like to bring that forward into everything that I do. But I think it started day one with firing my first client.
Yeah, that's huge. And I feel like, you can run an Amazon operation and sort of optimize the bids and all the rest of it and not have so much alignment with the client and their values and who they are. But when you're trying to build a brand with them, it takes a lot of trust, and because it's not straightforward, it's not simple, and the results aren't going to be seen in 2 weeks or a month even. And so that's really where the trust comes in, That's amazing to hear. Good for you, Corey. I'm glad it sounds like you made the right decision.
I think so. I hope that person's doing great.
Right. Yeah, and of course. Yeah. Scary at the time though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being able to say no is, I think, a skill that you have to learn as an owner and as a founder. Again, we've had another podcast with a lady by the name of Carrie Curran, who we've been friends with forever. And part of what she talked about is just coaching brand owners, coaching agency owners to be able to say no. So be able to choose like who your clients are, like identifying who you work best with, like what your niche is, whether it's a particular product or, particular category or type of person or locality, whatever it is. And then being able to say no to everybody else. Like, it's hard to say no to money, but you have to understand what comes with that, all the additional work. Maybe the client isn't a great fit just from as Ben said, and as you've already said, like a personality or an emotional standpoint, or maybe they're just really demanding and the money isn't necessarily worth it. And so being able to say no is that learned skill that you have to have as an owner, so that you can actually make money and you can actually sleep, and actually have time with your family and your friends. So again,
and let me take it one step further too, because, when I was on the other side of this, taking in a lot of podcasts, as I was thinking about building my first business, I had an 80-20 mindset of like, I'm going to take in 80% and only put out 20, and then I'm going to flip it once I'm ready. Right. So I did that for like 4 years. I listened to endless podcasts. And one of the things that rings so true that didn't feel true at the time was Tim Ferriss podcast. A lot of people know Tim Ferriss, renowned for a lot of different things. I take a lot of what I learned from not just him, but the people that he had on his podcast. A lot of people would say, and then they would expand upon it, you have to learn to say no. And I would say, wow, as a young, soon to be entrepreneur, I'm like, wow, I'll never say no. I'll say yes to everything. And my wife's the same way. Like, she's also an entrepreneur. She also owns a business. And we were like, well, how could you say no to things like speaking engagement, whatever it is, just say yes, yes. Until that moment, you realize you can't do that anymore. Yeah. And yes, I think when you're first young, when you start a business, that first 6 months, whatever it might be, you should probably say yes to just about everything, right? But there is a point, and it happens fast if you're good at what you do, where you have to say no to like 90% of what happens around you, because everyone will eat your time. They will eat your energy. They will take your capital, and you have to really say no to so much. And flipping that switch is such a driver, because there's so much opportunity out there. It's really hard to start to finally say, like, you've been working so hard to get all these opportunities, but what if it undercuts your brand? What if it undercuts your time, your mental health, and you lose months at a time? So there's a lot of aspects to that, but that's one of those things that just rings so true to me, because there was definitely a point a handful of years ago where I was like, I am saying no to so much more than I'm saying yes to. And that's a magical time. So yeah, we all want to chase that, but you have to identify it
Right.
and then start to really figure out what makes sense for you personally.
Yeah, it's very freeing.
Yeah.
We, as Ben already said, we came up through agency land, and that's just like a bad word. Like no is a bad word within agency, especially within like the large holdcos. And it is very much a say yes to everything. The client's like, I need this report. I need it yesterday. I need it in an hour, or we need to have a meeting or whatever it is. And it's always yes. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of scale that's there. It's, hundreds of millions of dollars, but at the same time, you still, as an employee of that agency, have the same things that you have to worry about: your time, your mental health, like what you're missing out on. And so as an owner, it is very freeing to be able to say no. And so I think coming in with that yes mentality and then moving to being able to say no it's so eye opening. And you're right. It's just like we all work towards that point now.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey, e-com owners go through a lot of stages. I mean, you've said you're one yourself, right? And they need different resources at different stages. And one of another guest said, what gets you to the first point isn't the same set of tools or services that get you to the next point, and there's a lot of gates along the way. As people come towards you, what is typically that sort of key frustration or that sort of thing that happens in their business where they're like, right, I need to talk to somebody like yourself and take that next step?
Yeah, so it's kind of one of two things that typically drive someone in our direction so we can start to solve their problems. So realistically, it's a lack of bandwidth or a complete lack of knowledge on specific marketplaces. And that's kind of the two. Once in a while, you could also say it could be, hey, we actually have both those things, but we have a huge issue that no one at our company can solve. We need you to solve it. I've got a few clients that I've had for 5+ years at this point because they came to me with one issue. I solved it and no one else could solve it for 6 months. And we solved it in like a week or so. And guess what? They're still with us. Typically though, it looks more like bandwidth and knowledge, which you can kind of combine into one really, because you don't have the time and energy to put into learning a whole new marketplace. And then you certainly don't have the bandwidth for it. So what we find is a lot of brands outscale their skill sets and outscale the markets that they understand. And so that's when we best align. So let's just say someone who's, we've got a client coming on right now. She's massive on TikTok. She gets what drives TikTok. She studied it. She started her brand when she was very young. I'm not a TikTok person per se, but we're working together now because there's a lack of bandwidth because she's only her and her family, and she needs skill sets that are outside of a skill that she's able to have at the moment. So really that's where we kind of come in, and that's why we've built out an entire e-commerce team so that we can manage all of the marketplaces and all of that, and be able to also kind of coach. I think it's one area that some agencies do this, some don't. I align with the teach and build. I actually want you to have more knowledge. There's a lot of agencies that kind of want to keep you in the dark. They want to keep the secret sauce, so that they can stay on retainer as long as possible. I find that to be detrimental. I want people to learn, not so much that they feel overwhelmed, but enough that we can have really good conversations when things are going well and when they're going poorly, and that they can understand the levers we can pull and we can't pull. It's really hard to drive value for someone and fix issues for someone when in the heat of the moment, they don't even understand the basics of the platform. They're like, well, just call Amazon. And if you talk to right, there we go. So the amount of times that I've had someone say, I just need you're the Amazon person, you call Amazon. And it's like, well, you just don't get it. And so I need you to get it more than that and have the understanding that that's not actually a real thing. Maybe for certain brands where we have some really great contacts, but you don't typically just call up Bezos and make your claim that you need your reimbursements fixed or your small product compliance issue resolved. So it's a little more nuanced than that. But yeah, we really want to make sure that we have people on staff that understand it to some extent, or that they have a holistic level of trust with us. So we do have some clients that really don't want to understand it, but what they understand is that owner and I can hop on a call anytime, and I will transparently tell them everything that's going on, and I'll tell them exactly what they need to know and what I need from them and what we'll handle. And that's kind of my favorite spot, is actually kind of the people who just know the high level, and there's trust and communication is ultimately absolutely everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's great. Yeah. Sorry, Clint. I thought you were going to say something.
No, I was going to jump into the funny story question.
Okay.
So one of the questions we ask everyone, some people have great answers, some people have no answers at all, but we've all been in agency land or worked with clients for a long time. Whether it's in a pitch or whether it's just a crazy client story or just a crazy situation story, but we all tend to like trade them around like cards, like internally, kind of within teams. But we want to give people a chance just to tell their funny pitch story, crazy client story, because we can all relate, and it's just so humorous to hear that it's not just you, it's not just the other team, that everybody goes through this. So if you've got a crazy pitch story, or you've got a funny client story, it doesn't have to be a crazy client story, a funny client story, or just situation, would love to hear it. Would love for you to share it. If you don't, not a problem, but would love to share it.
Yeah, no, I've got plenty. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this in a positive route.
Yes,
and I'm going to take this. We're fresh off of Amazon Accelerate this year, and so I'm going to tell a little story kind of from Amazon Accelerate last year through this year with a client pitch, and it's just kind of relays back to some of the information that we've had on here already. But so I have a client that we met by happenstance at Amazon Accelerate 2024, and we hit it off, and we hung out the one night, and then we hung out the next night for hours and hours and hours. And we actually had there's a third person that was with us as well. We kind of had a little group of three, and so he was the potential client, large client. I'm obviously the agency owner. And then we had another, someone from another agency. And the three of us got along really, really well. And we were having all these personal conversations and everything. And she pitched him relentlessly, kept telling me every time he would walk away, I'm going to close him. I'm going to close him. And we all got along really well too. So it wasn't like a pitch every second, but it was like in every hour, I'm just going to like little jab, little pitch. And she kept saying behind the scenes, she's like, I'm going to close him. Like, you're not closing this deal. I'm closing this deal. And I can tell a story because I love both of them, and we're all still friends now. So what happened was we hung out all night long, right? Like we went through all the block party and all the different things, and she's pitching, and I never pitched. I just hung out, just talked to him, never talked business at all. We just became friends. And when we got home, we're texting, and we get on a call, and he goes, I don't even know what you do, but I want to work with you.
Wow.
He's like, will you pitch me? And so I went through my whole pitch. At that point, I'm like, and that's the way that I like to operate. Like, I want to work with people, right? Like, that kind of goes back to that people, the alignment, all of those different things. Don't always take it that far, guys. Like, you don't have to wait that long. You don't have to wait for the client to literally ask you to pitch them. But in this circumstance, I felt like it was the right move. I felt like we were really good friends. I was like, it's just written. Like, we're going to work together in some capacity. So we were hanging out this year, and we were kind of recounting some of that. And she wasn't there this year, just kind of having some laughs. And we spent the whole party and stuff together this year as well. Just really enjoying each other as people. Really didn't talk business again. And then here we are talking business now a couple of weeks later. So I just love that mentality of just like, hey, I know your kids, I know your family, I know what you do, like I know your personal life, and we'll figure out the numbers in the business and all that stuff as well. But let's get to know each other. So
he bought your personal brand. He didn't buy your product, which she was trying to sell. I like it.
Right. Yeah. It's my way of selling. It's not selling.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
No, it's relationship selling, right? That's sort of the bottom line.
That's maybe the extreme version of it, guys. If you're out there watching this and you're like, that's too much, wait a couple hours and then at least throw a soft pitch out there. Maybe don't wait until you're texting 2 weeks later after an event. Maybe try that a little bit more. But yeah, I just felt like the relationship was so good. I was like, there's just no way we're not going to work together.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, I've got a question. Is this going back a little bit? Because normally this is where we wrap up. But I got to ask you, Corey, the idea of building a tribe or the 1,000 most loyal buyers, your ideal customer. How do you approach clients about that, and do they get it, or do you find that that's a stumbling block?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of product, right? Because a lot of people sell something that you're not necessarily going to buy numerous times, or that you're not going to buy their product and then buy subsequent other products. So I think you kind of have to separate that and say like, okay, yeah, acquiring 1,000 customers for something that you're not going to resell to them is different than maybe like a CPG where you've got subscriptions and you can layer on additional products and things of that nature. So maybe we'll kind of focus on that side, because I think that that's where the 1,000, your first 1,000. I always say it's like actually your first 100, your first 10. Don't actually worry about getting to 1,000. People will say the 1,000 because that's kind of the colloquialism. But for me, let's get the first 100, right? Like we can get 100 sales on Amazon. Let's do that. It's hard to kind of build that community on Amazon, truthfully.
Yeah.
I think Amazon's tried a few different things. They've tried the post. They've tried to be social media-esque at times. Yeah. It's not worked. I've never been a firm believer in it. We'll see if they're able to adapt or come up with some huge partnership at some point. I had thought maybe at some point they would try to buy TikTok, even though that would be Monopoly 101. Obviously, that's not happening now, so we'll see. But really kind of focusing outside of Amazon on that. I think that's where you have to curate the relationships. And that's where the social media component comes in big time. And quite honestly, not really my expertise. I think that's where I trust brand owners and other teams and partners to focus on what that community looks like off of Amazon, because really we want to capture sales on Amazon. We're trying to dive into market share, but it's really hard for me to push any sort of communal building within the platforms that I play on. So I try to just make sure that that's happening elsewhere and give whatever information and metrics that I can. Yeah. I do think, however, with the release of AMC to everyone and being able to get more demographic based on Amazon, that we're going to come into those conversations a lot more frequently in the future.
Yeah, it's that data loop. It's amazing how many times that isn't really utilized. I mean, Amazon is fast moving data. It's in the now, and it's quite rich as well. And if you're not pulling that into your other channels or into your brand planning, then I think you really are missing a trick.
Yeah. And it can be super hard, especially if you're scaling. Actually, sometimes what we see is brands are scaling too fast to almost take that step back and do that properly. So it's a good versus great situation where you kind of wish you did that from the start. But as you're trying to figure out all those other components we've mentioned throughout the show that a seller and a leader has to do, it can be really hard. And again, that's where you kind of need a master of metrics on your team to be able to maybe pull. That's something that having an internal person who understands data is actually huge. If they can cross-platform data and then give that data and analysis to the owner, that's a hugely valuable proposition.
Yeah, that's cool. Corey, thanks for coming on today. Look, give us your sign off, your business name, and, if you want, touch upon the role you play in building unforgettable brands. Thanks. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Corey with BuffaBrand. We focus on Amazon and building brands from very small launches all the way up through enterprise.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks a lot, mate.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your day. Enjoy your coffee.
Beautiful. I was just going to say I got a 10:30, so I got to hop.
Okay,
all right, guys. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
Bye. Bye-bye.